This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Welcome to Purpose Driven Sobriety. Thank you for joining the Purpose Driven Sobriety podcast. My name is Christine, and I am an alcoholic. I want to thank today's sponsor, Mr. Ralph Greider, is a great friend of the show, and thank you, Ralph, for sponsoring and being a friend to us in recovery. I truly appreciate you. So today I have Mr. Jared B. Now, Jared, I'm assuming you don't practice individual anonymity, correct?
No, I don't.
Okay, so
No,
Jared,
I'm
Blaine,
full.
you're out
Yep,
there. we're out
out
there.
there.
That's perfect. Well, I
Yes.
ran into Jared. Well, I think actually you were referred to me by a mutual friend, right? But I think we run in some
Yeah.
of the same recovery pages and stuff
Yeah.
on social
Yeah.
media. And I say this pretty much every single show that just like in real life, there are, my humble opinion, I believe, and I'm a 12-stepper, I believe that in person is where it's at. But if you're online, just like in person, you find where you fit, where you belong. So if you go
Mm.
into a meeting and it, after you've given it an honest try and it doesn't fit, you just try another meeting, just same way online. So there's a lot of resources on social media, be sure to check all of those out. But Jared, thank you for taking the time to come and talk to me today. And on this show, we just simply share what it was like, what happened, and what we're like now, just so we can reach that person who's still suffering. So I want to hear all about you, Jared. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me on. I'm excited for it. So any chance I get to share my story, I do it. So
Ditto. Thank you for
I,
that.
I do it, no questions asked. I don't care how big or small the platform is. We just go for it.
Amen. Amen. So tell me all about you.
So, my name's Jared Blaine. My last name's too hard to say. My middle name's Blaine, so I go by Jared Blaine.
Hey, Jared.
I am just over 5 years in recovery, and
Congratulations.
so by the grace of God, I'm here and I'm living, and man, I just, where do you want me to start
You
at?
just hey, you just do you, honey. I just want it. Yeah. What
Okay.
was it like? What was it like?
Yeah, yeah. So, okay. So for me, a lot of it started at a very young. I was, my mom was 15. She had me, and my dad wasn't in the picture. So, for me, being born to a child, pretty much as it is, her learning how to grow up, it took a lot. So, but my mom was with different men throughout my life. Unfortunately, as a young child, she was physically abused and different things, and then of course that would transfer to us children. So I was 8 the first time I was sexually abused, and of course, when that happens, you don't really understand it at that young of an age. So you get over, and then you get older, and then realize like what it did, how it
Mm-hmm.
really messed you up.
Mm-hmm.
But I was the typical. Just we moved a lot. My mom was these guys that would travel for work, and so there'd be 6 of us living in a little RV, bumper pool RV, traveling all over the country. But I didn't start to finish a school till I was 7th grade. It was like the very first time I actually finished a full year. I always on half the year, transfer to another place, so on and so forth. Um, but I met friends who, I mean, we're 12, 13, starting to smoke weed and started, just what teenagers do, unfortunately. Um, and I didn't really have any experience with anything. It was just, I'll take a little shot of liquor, do this or something. But really, what kind of led me downhill was I was 13 years old. Um, it was Mother's Day, and my stepfather at the time, my mom was married to him for about 5 years. He fell 200 feet off a cliff, and I watched him die in front of me, fortunately. And that that was obviously a traumatic experience for me. So that's kind of when I started lash out and act out, and you know, just now I'm smoking more, drinking more, you name it. My mom sent me to live with my aunt in California to try to help straightened me out. I was 16. I got into a motorcycle accident. I broke a lot of bones, and that was my introduction to opiates. Of course, I went through a year and a half of physical therapy, 2 years um, almost 2 years of physical therapy, 3 months in a wheelchair. Is like at 16 years old, and you're being fed every single opiate that you can imagine, and that right there was that was my into it. It wouldn't be till I was about 19 where I 18 or 19 when I actually started, like realizing that I liked it like that because I took it as prescribed as a kid. So I really wasn't too crazy. Like weed is my thing. I didn't care about anything else other even drinking like really wasn't my deal. It was more of just I was a pothead. And so when I did my thing, I went through my recovery for my accident, and then I got hurt at work when I was, I'd say 19. They put me on an opiate, and that right there was like right when I was just like brought up all those feelings all over again. So for me, it was, mine didn't happen until late. Some people, happens really, really early in life, but mine didn't happen until I was after when I was adult. But I got married at 19. I had my first kid at 19, and so for me, like I had to grow up really, really fast. But fast forwarding on that, it just I went 15 years naturally on and off with opiate addiction, and good 13 of those, no, 14 of those years, like nobody knew I had a problem. My ex-wife at the time, we were married 12 years, we're together 13, married 12, 3 kids, a functioning addict, 100%. I had a career, I had a job. It wasn't like I was like I made plenty of money, so it wasn't like I was, like, out on the streets,
Mm-hmm.
trying to sell this and that, whatnot. Like, my addiction was pretty self sufficient. I had a plug where I went to and whatnot. Just nobody knew I had and I never had let it affect my life at all, like, or so I thought, at the time. We think we say that, but until you look back.
Right.
But I didn't have an issue. Like, it was I got up, went to work, took care of my family, and I did I did what I did. Um, and it was just it wasn't until later on, like I'd say like the last 2 years of my addiction where that's when it got sloppy. That's when I lost my job. Mind crap came out. I ended up getting sloppy. I lost my job. Then I ended up running out of money. Then I ended up having to pawn tools and just sell my guns, sell whatever I could just to my fix. I never dealt with uppers or anything, but it was always like opiates and fentanyl and oxy. That was like my DOC, but that's because that's what I was introduced to when I was a kid for my accident.
Mm-hmm.
And I got involved with some people that I have to watch how much I share on this
Oh,
part.
sure.
But I got involved with, I'm from Arizona. And I'm half Hispanic, so I speak Spanish. I lived in Mexico for a brief period of time. So I got involved with some people south of the border. And that's when I ended up doing distribution, different things to that nature. It was more of um, a lot of it was just, I could get unlimited amounts of money that I want, unlimited amounts of product, this, that, and the third. I got fronts. I started to come back up in my addiction. I went from like having to pawn everything to like here now I got this connection. Now I have a way to make money. Now I can do this, that, and the third. But I had to do some things that I didn't want to do, and it was more of wrong place, wrong time because I walked in and I saw something in that exact moment. And basically I'm trying to figure out how to tell this portion without because I used to be able to tell it all day long with no problem.
Mm-hmm.
Till recently, I went onto a podcast and I was 100%, and it kind of got me in some hot water. So I'm not, I'm trying to still want to share that, but
Sure.
I'm just being transparent with you. Um, so basically, I ran into a situation that I didn't want anything to do with, but I was basically forced into it, and that kind of scared the crap out of me at that point. That
Mm.
was one of those things where it was like, man, like it's now, now or never. And I ended up getting in debt with the same guys that I was making money with. I ended up getting in debt with them. I ended up owing them. I ended up having to sign titles to my vehicles over, you name it. I had to do it because of I owed them. These are the type of people that are not some street level, dime bag selling
Right.
people. Like, you owe money, you pay it some way, somehow. I mean, and they broke into my house. They ransacked my house for every single thing that they could find. So I had to make right on that. A certain situation that I walked in on and that I saw and that I had to be a part of, it scared the absolute crap out of me. I was just like, wow, like I don't want anything to do with this. And they're like, well, you got A choice or B choice. Which one is it? And both of those weren't, none of them were a good choice. And so, but then I realized, like, if I don't get out of this situation, like, that's going to be me next.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening in this situation is going to be me because they don't care. Like, as long as you're benefiting certain people,
Right.
you're cool all day long. But the minute that you don't benefit them or they don't, it's, it's like sharks. They'll just your head off and move on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so for me, what it took for me to basically get sober was to run into this situation, get the crap scared out of me, pay off my debts, move 1,500 miles away to Texas. That's I remember told you this. I moved to
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah.
I moved to the Waco area, but well, first Fort Hood and then Waco. But I yeah, and mind you, my ex-wife knew absolutely nothing up
Really?
until like, she knew nothing, like, she was completely oblivious to everything,
Wow.
and it wasn't until, like, my house got broken into and ransacked before she actually figured out what the
Something's
heck's
not right.
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I have to explain I had to explain to her, like, where I'm getting these large amounts of money from because I would just come home with, like, "I bought a new truck," or, "Here we go, I bought a motorcycle," or, "Bought a," she's like, "Well, where did you get this from?" "Oh, I got a bonus at work," 'cause I was
Mm-hmm.
making really good money, so I was able to, BS myself out of a lot of things, but, again, she just always took it like, "Okay," like, never questioned anything until, the house got broken into and, people showing up at the doorstep and whatnot, and then it was kind of more of like, she ended up finding, my little stash that I kept in the house, and she found that by accident, and it was just like this is the thing, how she found out was I was in the hospital, I had to do something happened, I was in the hospital, I needed my charger, and so I told her, go home in my work truck in my center well, in my work truck charger. She goes, "Okay." I didn't tell her anything else other than that. I said, It's in I don't know where it is." And then she said that she went there and she said she felt like God literally told her, "Get in the truck, open up the center console, in this stash can, this is what you're gonna find." That she felt like every single one of those words, she did exactly that, and there was all my stuff. And mind you, it wasn't like you could just open up the console and there it is. Like, it was
Mm-hmm.
legit
Stashed.
stash can
Yeah.
hidden, like, you would have to literally tear stuff apart, and she said that she just said she felt some type of spirit instruct her to do every single one of those steps, and that's how she found out. So when she questioned me about it, then putting 2 and 2 together with everything at the house and whatnot, I had no choice other than to come and tell her, what basically everything that I had been going through, and I told
Mm-hmm.
her I got myself involved with some that we don't want anything to do with. But in order for me to get away with my life, I have to, make right, do certain things, and that was going into paying everything off. And then she's like, I was expecting her just to be like, I'm done, like, because our marriage was, we got together because of our kid at that time. Like, she was 17, I was 18. And then, well, she was 16. Sorry, I was 18. And then when she was 17, when she had him, and then of course I was 19 because our birthdays were like right next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we got married. Like, her mother was very religious and was just like, you're not moving anywhere unless you guys get married. And of course, she was a family friend too. So, like, it's not like we didn't know each other.
Right.
But So her mom took her down to the courthouse, got the marriage license, and did it. But that was the only reason, honestly, that we even got together and got married was because of our child. And then, of course, just over the course of 12 years, we had two more kids, and it was more out of comfort, it wasn't based on like love or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, I was expecting her to be like, just done. Screw you. We're done. This, that, and the third. But she basically gave me the choice. Like it's either like your family or the drugs. And I was like, well, my kids are like my everything. So of course, and I got scared of everything. So I was ready. I was ready. So I chose my family, and we just kind of literally looked at a map, threw a dart, and it landed on Central Texas. And we, within 2 weeks, we sold every single thing that we owned, other than like a couple garbage bags full of clothes. We put them in our vehicle. We drove 1,100 miles to Central Texas. No house, no job. It was just on pure faith. And within that first week, had a house, had a job, like everything was lined up. And of course, then the rest was history at that point. And so I'll kind of, before I jump into that, give you some time to digest, what had happened up to the point.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So how
Yeah.
old were your kids when you came to Texas? So must have been
So
your oldest 12.
my oldest, my oldest just turned 13, my middle turned 11, and my daughter's 9.
Oh,
So
okay.
and I've been sober for 5 years. So subtract, 5 from all of those.
Right, right, right.
So they were. My daughter was really was young.
Right.
My daughter was obviously she was really young.
5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah, about 5, 4, 4,
Wow.
4 or 5. And my kids didn't really at that time, like they didn't really understand. They they even then they didn't know anything. Of course, they were too little.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like, they were gonna go out and say anything, but um they just, now as an adult, or not as an adult, but as now that they're older, like my oldest has gotten, he's gotten upset with me about couple things, and I know that I'm very open with my past, especially when it comes to my kids, just because I
Good.
want to be, I want, I don't want to hide it. And
Right.
so when he found out about everything, like he had a lot of like different things, and so like he would, when gets mad, when he used to get mad at me, he used to like pop off on me, like,
Mm-hmm.
well, go snort another pill or do this or that, and like that hurt. Oh,
Yeah.
that hurt so bad. And so like everything I try to do now is try to show them that even though like they're in Texas or in San Antonio, I'm in New York, and so like I try to show them, like even though I'm not there, like everything I'm doing in my life was essentially for them at that time. Like, yeah, I got sober. I want to get sober for me, because we all know that if you don't get sober for you, it's just, if you get sober for somebody else, it
It's not,
doesn't pan out
yeah,
the way you
it's not
expect
going to
it.
last. Yeah.
But my kids were my motivation 100%,
Mm-hmm.
because my DLC at the last 2 years was fentanyl, and I knew it 100%. And that's the same stuff that was killing tons and tons of people at that time. And so, and I've overdosed plenty of times, and I used to have doctors and EMTs tell me, one day you're going to take this, you're going to go to sleep, and you're never going to wake up. And I didn't care.
Right.
So for me, it was like when I decided to do that, like my kids were absolutely number one. Like I want to be around, I want to be alive for my children. I just I, um on Wednesday, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, and so at that time, I was just hitting 30. I was like, I'm young. I'm still a young guy. Like I don't want to die. Like I really did, and I wanted to be there for my kids, and I also didn't want to go out as as dying as an addict. I try to be very open and honest, but my kids did save me 100%, like hands down. Like they're the reasons why I actually did it, and there's the reasons why I stuck. I continue to do it
Right.
because.
So you got to Central
So
Texas. What happened after you got the house and the job and the car?
yeah, so I mean, I got there, everything just kind of, everything lined up the way that it should. Everything, we were provided with everything, and I just, my my recovery just, I started go. I for me, like I like explained to you before, I don't do AA, I don't do NA, and I support 100%. Like for me, it was like celebrate recovery, like that was my thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, because that was a faith-based program, and that's just what I was used to. And so, I started going to meetings, and I started participating in that. Um, and then I just started just working on myself. Like I had a flip phone for like 2 years. I had a flip phone. I had no social media. Like I deleted everything. The only people that had my phone number was my like my boss and my wife at the time. Like even my mom, my family, like nobody had that because again, a lot of the stuff I had to get away from was from my family too.
Right.
Um, the people that introduced me to these people was family.
Mm.
So, and for me growing up, that type of environment was normal. Uh, I had family members, and it was all that for me. Like that was a normal lifestyle. It wasn't like abnormal for me to see that. So naturally, I get introduced to people through family. So I have to I cut everybody off when I left. 2 years I went, and I went home for the first time after 2 years. I went back to Phoenix. I made sure I didn't go back sooner, but we went back to visit for the very first time, and it felt really good because I knew like I wasn't gonna like I had no issues about seeing, yeah, I had a little anxiety about being back there. Just I knew that I knew what I wanted to do. I knew the goal was just to go there for weeks, but we're spending time with my family, celebrating that I'm here, and it's been
Mm-hmm.
2 years, but um essentially like that's just what it was. It was just me working on my recovery, going to meetings. Uh, you know, I had I was having like about a year in, the podcast I have now, like that was started, grinding in my head. It was just like I want to share my story and I want to have other people share their stories. And so I vowed about a year in when I started thinking about that, I made the promise to myself and I said that I will for the rest of my life, I will help every single addict that I can, every
Mm-hmm.
single person that was that's an active addiction, that's in recovery. Like that was my goal. I've done some great stuff through the last 5 years. A lot of great things. I absolutely love it. Like my life is other than getting divorced, which that's okay though, because me and my ex wife are like really, like we're best friends now compared to when we were together.
Good.
But we had to go through that in order to be able to grow. She's remarried. I've been my girlfriend for a year and a half. Eventually, married, and it's just different things. And so we to grow apart from each other, but still maintain that relationship and that friendship. But recovery's brought some amazing, amazing things when it comes to like our lives and a lot of these things that I have today, I would not have if it wasn't for recovery.
Mm. What took you to New York?
My girlfriend.
Oh yeah.
So, so I started this podcast in 2022. Um, I just started it by myself, of course. I
What's
just
the name
jumped
of the
in.
podcast? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So it's called the Blacklist Podcast, Blacklist. And I started this back in 2022, and it was more of like just doing lives and whatnot. I
Mm-hmm.
knew I wanted to do recorded content, but I just didn't know how to start, and so I started doing lives. So I had a mutual friend who had been on the live a couple times, and she's really good friends with Brianna, who's my girlfriend now. And so Brianna saw me on an episode on a live, and she was like, "Wow, like he's cute," type deal. And so we started just casually talking and whatnot. And so I know we dated for a year before I moved out here. We dated long distance for that time. I flew out here once a month, and then of course, then I moved out here last February. So I'm coming on a year being moved out here.
Oh wow.
But the podcast, though, yeah, the Blacklist podcast, and that was just my goal. Like a year into my recovery, it was I wanted to share not only my story, but exactly on helping others share their stories, let people know that they aren't alone, that we all have a purpose and a plan, and it doesn't matter how big or how small you are, it doesn't matter how successful you are or anything. And that's why when we have a range of guests that come on, we have everybody from just 9 to 5ers, and then we have people who are influencers, and we have people who are TV stars, and just and it just goes to show that addiction and mental health and all that doesn't discriminate
Mm,
anybody. Like it hits everybody. And so when we have these different levels of people on, we show people we are, it doesn't matter who you are. You could look at somebody like Larry Bagby, who's, you know, Walk the Line and Buffy and Hocus Pocus, and then you can have somebody who's just grinding, working the 9 to 5, and they are night and day on their levels, but their stories are just as impactful
mm-hmm.
as it doesn't matter. One person's story is more impactful than the others. I believe that everybody has their own story, and everybody's story um, impacts somebody in its own way.
Right.
I've reached out to people and say, "Hey, man, I'd really love to have you on," and they're like, "Man, like, I don't have nearly as much followers as some of the people you've had on," and I'm like, "I don't care about that. Like, dude, I
Mm-mm.
don't care about that. You think I care about followers?" I was like, "I want to hear your story. I want
Right.
you for you because at the end of the day, there may be somebody out there that they need to hear your story in order for
Mm-hmm.
them to help them out."
Mm-hmm.
That they don't need to have somebody with 1 million followers. They need to hear your story.
Right.
And that's what I try to tell people because they think in order to come on the podcast that they have to be this influencer. Not at all.
Right.
I just want to help broken people who, well, I was broken. I wish I would have had that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't, I didn't have that. And I wish that I would have had that at that time.
Right. I can totally relate. Yeah, it's amazing, especially, cuz I'm a 12 stepper. So I mean, it's amazing going into a room of AA for instance, and seeing just you've got the guy that pushed his shopping cart with all of his belongings up to the door, and then you've got the judge that's, sitting at the same table, and it's just like our stories are the same. I mean, that desperation, that hopelessness, that just
Mm,
hell is all the same.
mm,
It just that, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
it's actually quite beautiful to see.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Have an in and speak the story. Like I run a podcast and I help other people tell their story, and then when I go to tell mine, I'm just like all over the place. So my apologies if I'm everywhere.
You're fine. You're
I try
fine.
to like share I kind of like try to share story in not like great detail, but just like focus doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you're doing a great thing. I mean, and I'm so glad that. How's your relationship with your kids?
It's good. It's great. I wish see they were like in person closer. They come out here for the summer and whatnot, but I call them every day before bed, and we talk every single day and text and whatnot. But um, it's good now. It really is
Good.
compared to like how it was when I was when they first found out about everything. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
like they're gonna have some feelings about something,
Sure.
but just to them to be able to see me now and see how far I've come in my life. I mean, even my ex-wife, tells me from time to time how proud she is of me and how she's where I'm at in my recovery and in my life. And it's nice to hear that even from like my family and whatnot, to hear my sisters and my brothers and my mom and people just say like, I am so grateful of where you're at in your life. We fentanyl is killing
Oh
everybody,
man.
and my mom was just at a funeral yesterday for a family friend who had passed away from fentanyl, and she was like, and she was telling me like, I'm so grateful that you're here and that you're alive and you're off of that because she's like, I can't tell you how many times that I thought that I would lose you,
Wow.
and it reminds me like that I have a purpose and that I'm here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's spiritual and not everybody's religious, like everyone's higher power is different. Mine's God, but God's brought me here for a reason and I'm still here. And I believe we all have a why in our life. It all comes down to we all have a why, and it's a figure that why. It's
Mm.
us connecting to our higher power. Figure why are we here? And I truly believe that where I'm at in my life is my why. doing from the podcast to the nonprofits to everything that we're doing, helping people, get into treatment and facilities and this, that. I believe walking in my why at this current part of my life.
Good.
And and all of life is always going to be, why are we here? It's going to be, we're going to question all the time. And I think our whole life is going to be seeking and wondering, what our purpose is, but we're always going to be walking in certain phases of our purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And like right now, this is where I'm at in my life. This is what I'm doing. I'm walking, and I believe this is my why of why I'm here. And I try to help people figure out why. I try to help people figure out what is your why? Why do you believe that you're here on this earth? Because we've we could have all been dead. We could have all succumbed to our addiction,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been spared, and we're here. Okay, it's not the just luck of the draw that we just survived. All right, why are we here?
Mm-hmm.
And I try to tell people that. Sit back, think about it. What's your purpose? Why did you survive your addiction? Why did you survive your suicide attempt? Why did you survive this? You obviously have a greater purpose on this earth. You
Right.
aren't here just to live, breathe, and die. Like, that's just not the way that I believe that that's
Yeah,
happened.
me too. Me too. What would you tell someone that's in the throes of addiction right now?
Literally, it cliche as this sounds, and it is cliche, but it's literally one day at a time. It's don't worry about tomorrow. Don't just worry about today. There's brighter light at the end of the tunnel. It's I know it feels dark. It's not going to be like this forever. But if you truly want it, and you have to truly want it for you, you can't want it for your mom, for your dad, for your brother. You can't. You have to truly want it for you. And if you truly want it, and you take that first step, you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Don't look back. Keep going forward. Get that accountability. Make sure you got someone there to call you out on your stuff, and focus on today. Every day in your recovery, doesn't matter how long you have clean. Doesn't matter how long you have, so it doesn't matter how long anything. Go back to day one. For me, 5 years later, every day is day one.
Mm-hmm.
I focus on, because if I get complacent in my recovery, things are going to start going downhill. I mean, I get complacent, you get lazy. And that's something that we have to practice that a lot, is constantly every day is day one. People are like, yeah, you know what? Oh, I'd love to have 5 years. They're 30 days in. I'd love to have 4 or 5 years clean. Okay, that's great. That's a great end goal. But don't focus on that. Focus on now.
Yeah, that's too big.
Because
Mm-hmm.
it's great to have goals, and it's great to have visions. Like, because I will tell you this, this is what I believe. I cannot sit here and guarantee you that I'm going to be sober the next 20 years. I can't. I'm a human being. I'm sorry. I could, unfortunately, and I pray to God it never happens. I could lose it all tonight. But I can only hope and have faith that I will be clean, sober for the next 20 years, for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I focus on now. I focus on next 5 minutes, next hour, the next day. I don't, because why are you going to struggle? Why are you going to stress yourself out? Figure out about trying to stay sober tomorrow when you need to stay sober for now, for
Right.
today. And
Right.
so it is cliche. It really is cliche, but it is one day at a time, and it's always every day is day one.
Yeah, sometimes it's one moment at a time. Good grief.
It is.
Man, this,
And I know
there's,
people in recovery get tired of hearing it, but it's true.
yeah, well, and that's, yeah, staying in the, there's a saying I often tell sponsees. It's like, you got to live where your feet are. There, and that involves not beating the crap out of yourself over yesterday and not worrying about tomorrow. Living in your feet where they are, or living where your feet are today in this
Yeah.
moment. Because if you don't, you rob yourself of those individual moments that could be valuable when you're
Yeah.
caught up in yesterday and tomorrow.
Right. Absolutely.
So,
It's a great vision, but just, yep, focus on now.
mm-hmm. Yeah, which is really hard to do. It's not, I mean, it can be really hard to do. I mean, that's just like you said, we're humans. I mean, and that's where surrounding yourself by people that you trust to tell you the truth about yourself, that you've given the
Yep.
authority to tell you the truth. I think that it's imperative to surround yourself with those types of people if if you're
Right.
wanting to be into recovery. Because I don't want to just be sober. That's hell.
Right.
That's hell to me.
Mm.
I want to be in
Mm-hmm.
recovery. I
Yeah.
want to, which involves, just like you said, being of maximum service to someone else
Yeah.
besides myself. You
It's a
know.
lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. You don't just get sober
Right.
and then it's done. It's a literally it becomes your life,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just the way it is. People think, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna get clean and sober, and here I am." No, it doesn't work like that. Getting sober is the easy part. Staying sober is the hard part.
Right. You don't graduate.
Exactly.
I was
No, you don't graduate.
I was expecting to enter into AA, and someone ultimately will give me a nicely framed certificate, of completion, or
Yeah,
something like that. And it's like, yeah, no,
it's
keep coming back. Is all
it's
I
your whole exact. It works if you work it and keep
Mm-hmm.
coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just I've always held on to that. So you know, you work on it, and I believe your certificate at the end of the day is when we die with clean, and like that for me, like that's my
That's
certificate to know that I've been
success.
able. That's success,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How can people find you, Jared
Yeah.
Blaine?
So I uh our website, theblacklistpodcast.com. Everything's on there. The only personal thing I have is Facebook. But I have everything linked to, so it's THEBLAKLIST podcast.com. That has all of our socials, that has all of our Spotify, Apple, Pandora, everything's on there. And that has links to everything. And then of course my face, facebook.com/ I am Jared Blaine.
Very cool. Thank you for taking the time to come and sit and talk with me today. I'm so glad to know, it's so awesome to, I mean, you get into, at least here I am in Waco, Texas. I was in a bubble, and it's like, I know that there's some recovery community, here, but it's so wonderful to see different warriors around the country just doing the deal, man, just
Yeah.
on a day-to-day basis, just trying to spread hope, which
Hmm.
which I had
Absolutely.
none of. I had none of that. I had no hope. So the
And
fact,
that's why we
yeah,
do this.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Is to show people there is hope. There is hope, 100%. I always end my show with the last thing I always say when I end every episode um, is remember, there's always a hold on to hope,
mm-hmm,
always a reason. And
mm-hmm.
so I end that with every episode just because you're never too broken to be put back together. There's never you can't burn too many bridges. Like there's just you are there is hope. It's not even if you relapsed, it's not the end of the world. Okay, I get it. You got to start over, but people get ashamed and they're just like they don't want to do it anymore because then they feel like they've let everybody down. But it's like there's hope. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter how you fall. It matters when you get back up. And
Right.
what are you gonna do when you get back up?
Yeah.
Are you gonna
Shame.
sit down and cry about it, or are you gonna get up and actually do something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shame kept me hiding for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shame will kill you.
Yeah. And it's like, be loud and proud about it. Be loud and proud about your recovery. I get some people, again, and I respect it. They want to be anonymous, and I respect that 100%. I'm just not one of those people.
Yeah.
I'm
I
loud
I
and
can't
proud. I
be.
let people
Yeah.
know.
I can't
Right.
be. Mm-hmm.
Because I've been given this second chance at life. Well, I don't know how many chances in my life, but I've been given all of these chances in my life, and I'm here. And I I couldn't just keep it to myself. I got to share
Mm-hmm.
this with other people. I got to let other people know that there is more to the than being an addict
Mm-hmm.
and chasing this high. Like there is so much more to life. So I have to. I feel like I have been called personally. I feel like I've been called in my life to be loud and proud in my recovery. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not. And I was shameful in the very beginning, but then I'm like, what am I doing? Like no, I gotta speak loud about it. And then when we do and talk about these things and about being loud and proud and this and people that are watching and listening, they're like, wow, all right, I can do this. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to be hiding in shame. I don't have to worry about it. I can do this.
Right.
And who cares what anybody else says? Who cares what anybody else says? At the end of the day, you focus on you and work your program, no matter whatever that may look like,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody recovers different. At the end of the day, everyone does, whether it's CR or AA, it's NA, whatever. Work your program and keep going, and don't let what anybody else says stop you.
And if something hadn't worked, don't give up. I mean, just like you said, I mean, AA may not be for everybody. There is something out there. There's enough programs and enough people in recovery that you just have to keep seeking, you know. And there,
Yep.
just like you said, there is always hope. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much as well.
All right, we'll stay in touch. Thank you for listening to the Purpose Driven Sobriety Podcast. Thanks for listening to Purpose Driven Sobriety. Keep coming back.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.